Let's bring you up to speed on the story so far. I began my journey with a jump cut, before finally getting on my bike and leaving Sydney, on the long ride from Australia to England. After getting rained on a lot and killing a small bat, I drank excessive amounts of coffee and rode off into the sunset several times. After falling over a little bit, and then a little bit more, I made it across the Nullarbor, without much going wrong, apart from losing 2 phones and finding a body. However, I finally got from Sydney to Perth, jumped on a boat, and was promptly jailed in Cape Town for 3 weeks. Eventually, I was released, and got to cawing at monkeys on my way up the continent of Africa. After passing through some amazing mountain passes and defending myself from the most friendly of dogs, I encountered a Jeff before helping an Italian deliver his pizzas on time. Once in Zambia, I participated in murder before blaming it on elephants, and escaping through lion-infested territory I was specifically told to avoid, before performing roadside surgery on myself and being accosted by some dodgy police. Now that you're all up to speed, it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm
Still
in Zambia.
for now. Today, I've decided to visit Victoria Falls. And this is because I'm going to be there anyway, so why not? And this is at a point where Zambia meets Zimbabwe. And in the pursuit of tourism, it's the most slack border you're ever going to encounter in your life. I was allowed through to see the waterfall from the other side, without even showing my passport. But there's a catch. You're going to be followed the entire time by people trying to get money from you.
So Victoria Falls has basically become, well it always has been, a over-commercialized bullshit place. And I mean, I'm not going to go and pay to see a waterfall. I have my own plans for this place, and I'm going to get better shots than anyone else here.
And on that note, I hid like a coward and flew my drone over the waterfall. Sadly, I had to have a mini panic attack, because my drone didn't quite have the range to get out to the waterfall. So this is as good as it got, and when combined with my Zimbabwe side footage, I'd say it's good enough.
That's weird, my bike just cut out for a bit. What the hell happened there? Well, here's some foreshadowing. I'm about to have engine problems. Most likely, injectors or fuel quality. So I'm sure this is going to happen very soon. Skip to the breakdown. Well, there we go. That was the breakdown. I don't think it would be something stupid like a breather issue causing a vacuum in the pump. Possibly, there was a bit of a hiss. And there goes my trust in the bike. Simple as that. I'm pretty sure it's the fuel tank breather must be blocked or something. Because when I open the fuel tank, a hiss comes out, which means that there's a vacuum in there as the fuel goes out, and it could be putting a bit of strain on the pump, who knows, but yeah, either way. It's not a completely dead bike, so I'll have to limp it somewhere. Let's hope I can limp it for the rest of the tank of fuel, and then see if I can find a better fuel station that's not going to have shitty quality fuel. And then obviously I'll check the breather, but yeah, it's definitely fuel related because there's no backfiring and it just seems to like cut in and out. So yeah, injectors or fuel or something wrong with the tank. Until next time, breakdowns.
So I think what's happened is I've got a bit of shitty fuel in this bike, and for some reason they have a fully internal filter in the fuel pump, which is in there. It's out, but you can't really see it. So I have drained all the fuel out of my fuel tank while putting negative 12 volts on the pump so it runs in reverse to hopefully blast some of the crap out of the filter, if that even is the problem. There's a fuel station like there, so you know, I'm just going to push it to the fuel station afterwards and fill it up again, hopefully with fresh fuel. And I've also gone to the effort of clearing out the breather in the fuel tank. So with any luck, that'll fix everything caused by that ruckus. Just randomly stopping to buy a SIM card. And I make myself a little Chinese traveller buddy.
And he's funny, he's traveling around on a Honda 150 and he's done pretty much the same trip as me, but he's complaining about how he can only do 80 kilometers an hour on the highway. Says it's not fair. And he's got short legs, so he can't ride a BMW. Don't do that.
After we parted ways, I continued north to the Tanzania border. And this is described by locals as mostly highways. But these are not highways in the typical sense. The speed limit is 120, so you'll be travelling at 120 kilometers an hour for most of the time. Then all of a sudden, a 30 centimeter deep pothole will randomly appear.
This road is literally full of potholes. Some of them I've seen are about a foot deep, and if you hit any of them, it's going to be horrible. I'm sure like any camera things, these all look 2D, but yeah. I've hit a couple of them and it's bloody unpleasant. If I wasn't paying attention, it could throw you off quite easily. Look at that.
Or the road will suddenly disappear with no warning and become rocky, sandy, muddy rubbish. Or there'll be no road at all. It's entirely a gamble. And it's somewhere around this time you start seeing extremely destroyed trucks at the side of the road. And this is one of the worst ones I saw. I took a look at it and immediately thought no one could have possibly survived this crash. And then as I stopped, two guys came out, one of which was the driver. The driver was completely unharmed. And I don't really see how that's even possible.
You can't park there. If any of you Australian truckers thinks you have a hard time, compared to these guys, you're absolute fucking. I can imagine it now, you'd be like, fucking cunt mate, I've been...
This is the point where PTSD kicked in from my last border experience at Zambia. And after reading about other people's experiences at this border, I've decided to avoid it and go for a completely out-of-the-way rural border that's hopefully going to be a lot easier. So I'm going to get to here and hope for the best. But it's halfway along this route change, I realise that it's not just trucks that are crashing. Now, being rural roads, there's not that much in the way of fuel stations. And this is the first case of fuel range anxiety that I got on this trip. I know that if I reach 512 kilometers, my bike will stop. And I've already gone this far. And this is how far I have to go before there's a fuel station on the map.
I'll be brutally honest, I'm actually going to be quite glad to leave Zambia. I mean, it's a wonderful place and everything, but all of this is in the pursuit of having an easy border crossing, because the main border crossing on the main road is apparently an absolute bloody nightmare, and I'm going to this out-of-the-way little obscure one through all these horrendous toll roads to try and get a bit of an easy time with it, and not have to travel through about 20 different buildings to get my carnet stamped. So I'm almost at my hostel place for the night in about another 50 kilometers. So, yes, I'll be at the border tomorrow. And so I'm waking up out and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I see the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I said, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? I think it's so good. Yeah, what the fuck are you doing, boss? You're gonna kill me with your shit driving skills. You probably can't see it on this camera, but all this crazy cunt stuff that I have to deal with. Everyone driving fucking directly at you at 100 kilometers an hour. You have to dive out the way. It's absolutely insane.
Anyway, I didn't have to walk. The border was fantastic. It took about 45 minutes, and the guy running it looked exactly like Jamie Foxx.
This has got to be one of the more funny border crossings I've done. I was down here just a minute ago to get stamped out of Zambia. And they didn't care. They just wanted to talk about football and say how England's going to lose the World Cup. But I don't care about football, so it doesn't bother me. And then I come up here and it's just like chickens, everything. I wish every border was like this one. This is hilarious. Well, that was one of the much more excellent borders I think I've crossed. It was just like so relaxed, there weren't many people there, everyone there is kind of friendly, talking about their stuff and, you know, sharing their travels, and then you go into the offices, nobody really cares. I'll put a picture up of my e-visa that got me into the country, because the guy said his computer was down, and I said, oh, you know, I don't have it because it's an e-visa. I just wrote down the dates in the back of my notebook. And he was like, oh, that's fine, as long as I got the dates, don't worry. And then they send me into a little corner shop to pay for whatever it is. I think it's road tax or some kind of, you know, backhander, but who knows. And then I come out and there's like children all over my motorbike, like this.
Oi mate, come over here, come check this out. What does this say? This guy is a dickhead.
And then as soon as I go up, they start calling me something. I assume it means, ha ha, stupid white man. But yeah. And then one of them cried. So it was instant justice. So of all the things you decide to camouflage yourself as, you camouflage yourself as a banana to hide in the road, where you sit there doing your dance. You're about to be killed by a car. Silly boy.
In case you hadn't guessed it, from this point on, there are no roads.
So there are several times on this trip where I ask myself, what the bloody hell are you doing? I'm riding with no helmet, because you don't have to in this country. Calm down. What do you think of that, mother? This road is a bit disgraceful. There'll be tarmac for like a kilometre, and then it'll just turn into this stuff. And my bike is like vibrating apart. I've lost one of the bolts on the other side, so my handguard there. It's just flapping up and down. Feels like the whole bike's going to shake itself to pieces. But I just saw some giraffes, so you're going to have an obligatory drone shot.
Now, as it turns out, I was riding through a national park, and drone flying is extremely illegal in national parks. So for the purposes of this video, this is an extremely good edited video that was not shot in a national park, however it may seem. Anyway, I'd bothered this creature enough by flying an annoying little buzzy thing around its head, so after this, I left it alone and carried on my merry way.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Would you by any chance have a bolt for my handlebars? I guess not. So when I was planning this, I look at the map and I see this gap, and I thought, oh, Google Maps hasn't loaded. But no, it's just no road. The thing I think is the most amazing about all of this is how drastically different everything gets as soon as you cross a border. I mean, I've dealt with the last 3 days of just kind of open ground and monotonous terrain, and then as soon as you cross the border, you're into this with all these mountains and, you know, trees and windy little roads like this, and yeah. It's like entering a different Minecraft biome every time. Oh look, a skinny cow.
Eventually the roads started reappearing in bits and pieces, so I was able to do a bit more than like 50 kilometers an hour for a while. This was a good thing.
Just thought I'd have a break on the way to Arusha because I haven't eaten for a few days. Because I haven't really liked the look of the food. I mean, you go to all these places that are cooking the stuff and all the meat has flies all over it. And I figured I'd rather not get sick when I'm travelling, because having an exploding arsehole while you're riding a motorbike for a long time is not ideal. So here I am. Got my Pringles. Here's a fun fact.
You didn't dream it. Pringles tubes have got smaller. Because this is one of the ones I remember as a kid. Sort yourself out, Pringles. Well, so much for quad lock. I'm sure it's easily repairable and it'll just pop back together, but I mean, still far from ideal considering I paid $300 fucking for the thing.
Okay, so that was the bit across the river, just seeing some naked guy washing himself.
After all that mental trauma, I hit some actual proper roads. And this allowed me to relax a little bit as I headed towards Arusha. So far the route I've taken looks something like this. I entered that weird little border, headed towards strangely named towns, and then cut across here in the general direction of Arusha. But this is where I'm going to leave you today, after I got my first view of Mount Kilimanjaro. I think I should go up there. Maybe it'll happen in the next episode. Who knows? I know, I did.
I know I'm not at the camp yet, but look at this. Well, it is official. I am now an international smuggler.